In the February of 1848, the French king Louis Philippe had to flee to England. He was once brought to the throne by a revolution, and now he was being deposed by one. The successful French revolutionaries turned their country into a republic. Meanwhile, over in the conservative and autocratic German Confederation, statesmen like Austrian Chancellor Metternich and Prussian King Friedrich Wilhelm were getting nervous. 50 years ago, revolutionary France had invaded Germany, and they were afraid that this might happen again, or that revolution might spread from France to Germany. Luckily for them, the German Confederation had an institution where all the monarchs of Germany could meet to talk about these things. This was called the Federal Diet, which would meet in Frankfurt, the old capital of the bygone empire. Here, every German state could send delegates and talk things out, instead of fighting wars against each other like they had in the past. When the delegates assembled in early 1848 in Frankfurt, they were freaking out. The revolution in France had scared all of them so much that they decided to do some incremental token reforms to try and calm the situation in Germany and possibly even prepare the German people for future war with France. Many of these reforms were purely symbolic, including one that was about the symbol. The Federal Diet agreed that Germany should have new national colors of black, red, and gold. Before 1848, it was illegal for anybody to be seen with these colors, but now the Federal Diet had made them the official banner of Germany out of fear. But the scared reform attempts of the Federal Diet proved pointless, as suddenly, and to the surprise of the monarchs, barricades went up in Berlin, and then in Vienna, and then in Baden, and then everywhere, as all of Germany was suddenly consumed by revolution. Under these circumstances, Chancellor Metternich, who had once held an iron grip over the affairs of Germany and Europe, was forced to flee to England, just like Louis Philippe. The people showed how much they hated Metternich by making bad caricatures of him as he went. The people of Germany were demanding freedom and democracy and the unification of Germany. The monarchs of Germany were afraid for their lives under these circumstances, and to preserve their thrones and their livelihood, they decided to dismiss their old conservative ministries and replace them with liberal ones and with liberal constitutions. This process of liberalization was happening all over Germany. One of these new liberal prime ministers was a guy called Heinrich von Gagern. He proposed that since the monarchs of Germany had already given in on the demands for freedom and democracy, that they should also allow for German unification by making the Prussian king, Friedrich Wilhelm, the Emperor of Germany. But they were not interested. The unification of Germany would have to happen some other way. The new liberal governments appointed new liberal delegates to the Federal Assembly in Frankfurt. This new liberal diet got to work, making real changes to the German Confederation. They decided to abolish the censorship laws, which Metternich had once forced upon the German states and the German people. They also decided that the future constitution of Germany should not be decided by them, but by a new National Assembly. The National Assembly was to be democratically elected by all the German people of all of Germany. They also decided to change the borders of the German Confederation. The German parts of Eastern Prussia would now be a part of the new German Confederation, which would leave the Polish province of Posen undecided where it belonged. Political parties did not exist yet, so most people simply voted for local notables they respected, mostly professors and civil servants. The deputies of the National Assembly made their way to Frankfurt, and the Free City of Frankfurt was happy to give to them the Church of St. Paul as their meeting place, a very old, very large church in which the National Assembly would then hold its meetings in the coming months. The whole scene was very happy and patriotic. The people were cheering as the deputies made their way into the church. The first order of business of the National Assembly was to elect for itself a speaker, a president. They elected someone we've already met. Heinrich von Gagern was to be the president of the National Assembly. Under the leadership of Heinrich von Gagern, the National Assembly immediately started working on the new liberal constitution of Germany. This constitution would allow the various monarchs of Germany to keep their thrones as long as they would agree to uphold the constitutions of their countries, while uniting all of them into a new German empire, a liberal empire. However, there were several representatives in the National Assembly who believed that the whole revolution would have been pointless if it does not lead to the removal of all these petty monarchs who have been betraying the sovereign German people for thousands of years. Their leader was a guy called Hecker, and they wanted to create a German republic by any means necessary. But unfortunately for them, the majority of the National Assembly did not agree with them at all. So the Republicans decided if the elected representation of the nation did not want to implement the true will of the people, then they would simply have to do it themselves. And they left the National Assembly. At first, most of the other deputies did not care. Soon they would be forced to care, as Hecker went around Germany asking all true Republicans and true patriots to follow him in what would become known as the Heckerzug. Republicans from all over Germany joined his call, and pretty soon Hecker had assembled a Republican army in the south of the country and was preparing for civil war. Just 1 month after the beginning of the revolution, it seemed like the different revolutionary factions would fight a bloody and destructive civil war against each other. The National Assembly was beginning to freak out. The Republicans had assembled an army and were trying to march on Frankfurt to stop their meetings and institute a constitution, a Republican constitution on Germany by force, and the National Assembly had absolutely nothing to put up against them. Gagern decided that to save the revolution, to save the National Assembly, he would have to work with the forces of reaction. He met with commanders of the Austrian and the Prussian army, the same armies which the revolution had just fought against a month ago. He asked them to please help the National Assembly in the upcoming fight with the Republicans. They agreed. This new army would be commanded by none other than the brother of von Gagern. Pretty soon, the armies of the Republican and the liberal faction of the revolution were fighting against each other. But, to everyone's surprise, the first proper battle between the two armies ended when the Republican army suddenly turned and fled, leaving Hecker with no soldiers and no army. Seeing that the Civil War was lost for the Republicans, Hecker spent the rest of his life in America, eventually fighting in the Civil War as an officer for the Union. But when von Gagern's brother met with what was left of the Republican army to negotiate their surrender, one of them suddenly pulled out a gun and shot him dead. In spite of this murder, the Civil War was over. The Republicans were defeated. Most of the National Assembly was overjoyed. They felt like a civil war had been averted. Except von Gagern. Revolutionaries were killing revolutionaries. With the help of the government soldiers they were supposedly fighting against. This was not how he had imagined the German Revolution to go.